All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring the really profound ideas of Siau Muho, whose work asks us to completely rethink how we see the world, how we understand harm, and what it actually means to repair what's broken. And it all kicks off in a pretty unexpected place.
So, Muho doesn't start with some big, abstract theory. Nope, it begins with this really intimate, poetic image. A simple crack in a kitchen wall. A crack that's been there for generations, just silently watching. And this isn't just a random detail. It is the bedrock of the entire argument.
And right out of the gate, we're asked to hold two things in our head at once. On one hand, yes, it's a real crack, a physical thing. But on the other, it's also the perfect metaphor for our condition, for the brokenness in our world and, in ourselves. Muho is saying that this is precisely where truth is found, when we see the literal and the metaphorical as the exact same thing. So this brings us to our first major idea, completely reframing what a wound is. Instead of seeing it as just damage or something we need to hide, we're invited to see it as an opening, an aperture.
And this is where that metaphor gets personal. That crack in the wall, that's us. Our own broken places, our vulnerabilities. They aren't failures. According to this view, they are the very fissures that let new light, new understanding get into our lives and into our societies.
But to even begin to see this new light, we have to first get real about our default way of seeing. Muho argues that looking at something is never a neutral act. In fact, our typical gaze can be an act of power, one that often takes something, that extracts.
And you know this feeling, right? It's something you feel in your gut. We all know what it's like to be looked at, to be sized up, categorized, judged. It literally makes your body tense up. Now, compare that to the feeling of being looked into, an act of generosity that makes you feel genuinely seen and connected. The difference is night and day.
This whole idea is deeply connected to the work of the philosopher Simone Weil. If attention truly is the purest form of generosity, then the quality of our attention, how we choose to look at the world and at each other, becomes this hugely important ethical act.
But of course, it's not that simple. Muho immediately complicates things by asking, okay, but whose attention are we talking about? Who gets to do the looking and who is always being looked at? What's the cost of that attention in a world where power isn't shared equally?
Because, historically, the gaze has been anything but innocent. It's been used as a weapon to control people, as a cage to define them, and often as the very first act of violence that makes all the other kinds of violence possible. It's a heavy thought, but it's crucial.
So the challenge for us becomes pretty clear. If we want to live an ethical life, the very first thing we have to do is unlearn this habit of looking at things just to take from them. We have to learn to look with generosity, not with appetite.
Okay, so how on earth do we actually do that? Well, this brings us to the practical part, the turn towards a practice that Muho calls moral perception. Moral perception isn't about, having better morals than someone else. It's the active recognition that our way of seeing literally creates the world we experience. It's the constant, difficult work of looking at the very lenses we see reality through and asking if they're fair, if they're just. So where does this clearer vision even come from? Well, often, it's born in what the writer Gloria Anzaldúa called the borderlands. These are those in-between spaces, the experiences of living between different cultures, identities, or languages. See, living in those borderlands forces you to see from multiple angles at once, just to get by. And this isn't about saying, oh, everything is relative. Not at all. It's a really rigorous way of knowing that the most complete, most accurate truth comes from holding different, even conflicting perspectives in tension with each other.
And this question right here, this is the pivot for this whole explainer. Seeing more justly is the crucial first step, but it's not the end of the story. Once we've truly seen a harm, a wound, an injustice, what's next? What do our hands do after our eyes have done their work?
This leads us to the final and maybe most powerful idea of all. The work isn't restoration, it's repair. It's all about creating something brand new from the pieces that were broken.
And this difference is absolutely critical. Think about it. Restoration is a fantasy, right? It wants to rewind time, to erase the damage, to pretend it never even happened. Repair, on the other hand, is all about reality. It accepts that the break happened and transforms it, weaving that history of damage into a new, often stronger form.
What this really means is we have to let go of this desire to make things like they were before. You can't unbreak something. The past can't be undone.
So instead, the goal of repair is to acknowledge what happened and build from there, to weave that history right into the fabric of whatever we create next.
There's a perfect metaphor for this, the Japanese art of kintsugi. When a bowl breaks, they don't hide the cracks with glue. They fill them with gold. They highlight them. The repaired bowl is often seen as more beautiful, more valuable than the original, because it wears its history with strength and beauty. So, when you get right down to it, repair is a creative, forward-looking process. It sees a rupture not as an end, but as an opening, a chance to build something stronger, more honest, maybe even more beautiful than what was there before the break ever happened. Muho wraps things up with his lovely story about an old woman who has watched the same street corner for 40 years. And her secret? The world never runs out. It's endlessly interesting. There is always, always more to see if we're only willing to truly look.
And that leaves us right here, with this final thought. Seeing the world justly and then working to repair it, that's not a one-time thing. It's a constant invitation. The world is always offering itself to our attention. The only real question is, how will we respond? What will we choose to see? And what will we build from what we find?